Hi, welcome to my video on the cosecant graph basic equation. Cosecant graph, but before we do the cosecant graph, just to remind you, cosecant is 1 over sine. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So let's look at the sine graph first. So we have a unit circle. The radius of this circle is 1. So that's 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. So when we have 0 degrees, we have sine is 0. We have 90 degrees, which is right here. Sine is 1. 180 degrees, sine is 0. And we have 270 degrees, sine is the y, negative 1. We're back to 360, and we have back to zeros. So sine is the y on the circle. So these are all degrees. So if you, in order to do cosecant, we have to look at the graph of sine. So the graph of sine is 0, degrees is 0, 90 degrees is 1, so 1, 180 is 0, 270 is negative 1, 360 is 0. So this is the sine graph from 0 to 360. And if you want to look at the cosecant graph, you have to look at 0, and this is y, which is going to be cosecant graph. Then we take at 0, so sine is at 0 degrees, the sine is 0, so it's undefined. So at 0 degrees, the sine of 0 is 0 degrees, so it's undefined. Okay, mark U in. And now we have 90. The sine of 90 is 1, so the reciprocal 1 over 1 gives us 1. And we look at 180. 180 is here, and the sine of 180 is 0, and which means cosecant is undefined because it's the reciprocal of 0. And we have 270, and 270 we got a negative 1, so 1 over negative 1 gives us negative 1. And 360, sine is 0, so 1 divided by 0 is undefined. Now let's look at graphing. So cosecant, the graph of cosecant, allow me to use a red pen this time to distinguish. So cosecant at 0 is undefined. So let's mark, this is undefined right here. It's undefined at 180, so it's a vertical line, undefined. And it's undefined at 360. So very, very similar to the secant graph. And what happens is sine is positive here. So if you start at right here and you start at the 1, then the reciprocal of any number between 90 and 180 is this number between 1 and 0 is reciprocal, moves up like this, because this number is less than 1, so its reciprocal is going to be greater than 1. And between 0 and 90, then the reciprocal of these numbers here, if you take 45, 30, 60, 70, then its reciprocal is going up here. And the closer you get to 0, the closer you get to this asymptote. The closer you get to 180, the closer you get to this asymptote. So between 0 and 180, it starts at 1 and it goes to infinity. And 270 is negative 1, so the same applies. This is negative, so the reciprocal of negative numbers is the number smaller than negative 1, so it moves down like this. It's the same graph as the secant graph, only the asymptotes are in a different spot. A secant graph, positive here and negative here. And as a result, we have a period is 360, And the increment change is the period divided by 4. So 360 divided by 4 gives us 90 degrees. So the increment change is 90. This is the table that you have to remember for the cosecant graph. And the vertical asymptotes are at 0, 180, and 360. That's just right here. And that means they start at 0, 180. So because you can do 180, you can do 0. So we got 0 plus 180 n, where n belongs to the integers. So that's the same as saying 180 degrees times n belongs to the integers, because the 0 is not necessary. Or we could have radians and have n pi, where n belongs to the integers. So this is the basic table for cosecant. Now, let's look at our graphing calculator and turn it on, and we look at the equation. Cosecant is, make sure you can see it, cosecant is 1 over sine. So this is 1 over sine, and we're going from, let's go from 0, let's put a, just make it a minus 10 so you can see it, a minus 10 to, say, 370, and graph that. Now if I found out if you go to 380, watch what happens. So now this is 0, that's 180, and that's 360. These are the vertical asymptotes. This is a 1 right here, and this is a negative 1 here. And notice they bend, and they're like two cups upside down, and the lowest number, it starts at 1 here and goes above, starts at negative 1 and goes below. So that's the graph. Now, what about if we graph, put more into it? Well, let me explain that. What about if we take the table and go from negative 380 to, let's say, 730. Let's see what, and again, show you the equation is 1 over sine, which is cosecant, and what's the graph look like? Well, they're there, there's many of them. So what you see, this is 0 here, and this is 0, so that's 180 and 360. This is negative 180, negative 360. So the period keeps on repeating. So, okay, let me move that away. So we have asymptotes, and again, let me draw that. This is just showing you that the period is 360. So we got vertical asymptotes at 0. The sine of 0 is 0, so it's undefined. At 180, it's undefined. Every 90 degrees is undefined. Sine of 360 is 0, so it's undefined. 740 is undefined. 720, sine is 0, so it's undefined. Negative 180, sine is 0, undefined. Negative 360, 0, undefined. So this is y equals cosecant theta, which is 1 over sine. So everywhere sine is 0, we have a vertical asymptote, but it's undefined. So right here, at sine of 90 is 1, so it starts at 1 and it goes up. And because, remember, if you draw the sine graph is like this, sine graph. And then it goes up again, down to 0, down to negative 1. And again, over here, negative 1, 0, 1, 0. And that keeps on going. And this keeps on going. So, there's one cycle. This is 1 going up. This is negative 1 going down. So there's the period is 360. So now it starts over again from 1, goes like this, and 540 is -1, so it goes down. And over here at negative, this is -1 right here, and right here. So it keeps on going on and on. So the first one we did on the other page was between 0 and 360, and then it repeats. So it's up and down, up and down. Over here it's up and down. So the pattern is, the period is 360 degrees, or it's pi. And the increment change is 360 degrees divided by 4. So the period is 360 divided by 4 is 90. So that every the table of values, which I'm going to show you here why. This is the table of values is 0, 90, 180, 270 is the basic one. So at 0 it's undefined, 180 is undefined, 360 is undefined, and at 90 we get a 1. So this is the same table that we have for secant, but secant is undefined at -90, 90, 270, whereas cosecant of sine is undefined at 0, 180, 360. So this graph looks identical, except the vertical asymptotes are in, instead of -90, 90, 270, it's at 0, 180, 360. So the vertical asymptotes here are at -360, -180, 0, 180, 360, and 540, and 720, and there's more and more. So notice we got 180 again, or we could have a 0. So we could have 180 n, where n belongs to the integers, that's in degrees. Or we could have n times pi, where n belongs to the integers that we have radians. So it's 180 n. So anytime you make whatever integer you want to put in here, you'll get the, and remember this goes on left and right. The pattern keeps on going. And that brings us to the end of the video for the cosecant graph. And if you like my video, click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained, just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video was of some help to you. Bye-bye.